Frank was not used to partying, but on that particular night, he decided to give it a try. He landed in his Rolls-Royce and then he took a seat. He began to scan around the area and suddenly, his eyes met with a very beautiful lady. She was lively and seemed to be enjoying herself, but Frank didn't just buy this idea. He believed that something was wrong with the young lady. So, he continued to monitor her movements. Soon, he realized that each time she looked at a particular man with pot belly, her mood would change. She would begin to fumble with whatever that she was doing. This was what increased Frank's curiosity. The bearded man with pot belly seemed to be surrounded with securites. And in the midst of his friends, he kept pointing at that girl and making jokes about her. Those around him also found it so funny, they were also partakers in mocking this young lady. She hurried out of sight and rushed into the restroom. She sat on the floor and began to cry. She had no one to talk to and all she could do was cry. Once she was done with crying, which lasted for about an hour, she stood on her feet and made a brief prayer. "Do not forsake your child, my God." And just when she opened the door to come outside, a man bumped into her. "Sorry," he said. "My name is Frank." "What am I going to do with your name?" she said. "There are more important things bothering me now," she hissed, and then she shoved Frank aside. She was about to walk away when Frank held her arm. But he soon realizes that the lady was bleeding. What happened to? He couldn't finish his question before the lady collapsed into his arms. She was now unconscious. Frank looked left and right before lifting her up and rushing her out through the back door. Her name is Georgina. An innocent young lady who left her country on a visit to South Africa. A friend invited her over so she could put her into a very lucrative business. But she trusted her friend because she was her classmate in school. On arriving at the airport, two men dressed in suit and looking like security personnel managed to convince her that they were taking her to the right direction. Georgina even called her friend, who affirmed that claim. So, in her mind, she was definitely in safe hands. But along the way, she passed out and woke up to an entirely different reality. She was now in a lodge where ladies were being sold to people for their own satisfaction. Report claims that most of these ladies never returned. Once you are taken, you just have to hug your friends and say goodbye. Because it is likely you won't make it alive. She tried to reach her friends in all her lines, but none was reachable. That was when she knew that she had made a terrible mistake. Over the weeks, she had watched her friends being taken away and none of them returned. They would cry and hug themselves and even plead to those mercenaries that they don't want to go, but all their pleas went on deaf ears. They were all forced against their will. That particular night was Georgina's turn. The pot-belly man was the buyer and his intention was to offer Georgina to his dog for the weekend, after which she would be butchered and cooked as pepper soup for the same dog. With no one to talk to, Georgina resorted to drinking and dancing and smoking, just to forget her sorrows. Back to our story. Grinning face with smiling eyes. Frank had successfully dumped her into his car, having navigated through the back door. But, just when he was about to enter his car, security men began to shoot at him from angles. He was hit by multiple bullets, and once these men in suit realized that Frank had sustained enough injury, they began to make their way to Frank's car. Georgina was unconscious. She didn't even know what was happening. Frank was hit by some bullets, but he was still trying to force himself into the car by crawling closer and closer. What is life without happiness, peace, and love? Never look down upon yourself. It will only take a second for your glory to appear. Just a second, sweetheart. I believe you will be happy and fulfilled at the end of this story, so let's have dinner. Face savoring delicious food. Red heart, 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 red heart. These men in suit were ruthless. They kept firing at Frank until he was down. They ceased fire immediately, thinking that he was dead. Frank couldn't stand on his feet. He had sustained some bullets wounds in some part of his body. But he was determined to save the innocent lady in her car. These men in suit were swapping on him because they wanted to get the lady out of the car and to take her back to her master, the man with pot belly. Suddenly, Frank gathered the momentum and he screamed in pain and forced himself into the car. The men in suit began to open fire on Frank again, but this time he was able to maneuver his way out of that residence on a high speed. Finally, they are safe. She woke up in an entirely different circumstance. Where am I? She asked herself. But only then did she hear a loud scream. It was a male voice. She had to force herself to stand up from the bed. She also had some bandages on her body. She began to follow the direction of that scream, hoping to see who was in there. She arrived at the bathroom, and as she poked her head into the bathroom, she also screamed so loudly. "Who did this to you? Can I help you out?" she requested with a sweet low voice. After a while of silence, Frank looked at her and said, "Yes, you can. I used to be a nurse in my country before coming over to South Africa." But Frank didn't say a word. He just kept showing her the different wounds that he had sustained. "You have bullets in your body. Were you attacked or what?" she asked. But Frank didn't respond. As she tried to pull out the bullets from the wound, Frank could no longer endure the pain, so he collapsed. Even in his state of unconsciousness, Georgina continued to remove the bullets. She would stick a knife into the wound and gently pull the bullets out, about 8 of them. Her hands and clothes were already stained with Frank's blood. She gently began to mop the ground. She was hurting due to her own injury at the park. But the mother instinct in her appeared and she rubbed her hands on Frank's cheek and also kissed him on the cheek. When Frank regained consciousness, he realized that he was in his bedroom instead of the bathroom. "Finally you are awake, my dear," Georgina said to Frank, who stared at her for a while before saying thank you. "Why did you save me, Frank?" she asked. "Maybe because I'm an angel sent by God to come and liberate you. To rescue you from those evil guys." Georgina didn't say anything in response. "Your clothes are stained. I have some nice clothes that you can manage for tonight. So, go to my wardrobe and make your choice." Georgina hissed. "I am a stranger here. And you are already giving me so much freedom. To me you are not a stranger. All you have to do is go there and select any clothes of your choice." There were many clothes in the wardrobe, so she could not make an easy choice. But she closed her eyes and randomly picked the clothes of her choice. Pink top and black trousers. It looked like an oversized wear. But she was in the house, so no one would mock her. She hurried back to the room to show Frank the clothes, and she was hoping that Frank would laugh at her. On reaching the room, she realized that Frank was no longer in the room. Her heart began to beat so fastly. As a lady, many things were going on in her mind. "Frank!" she called anxiously. "Frank, where are you? Frank, are you safe? Answer me, please." But there was no trace of Frank anywhere. Is he dead or what? Or has he been captured by these heartless guys? She decided to call the police and inform them of the present situation. She was very anxious at that moment. It was a mansion, so finding Frank would not be an easy walk. And she was also worried that the pot-bellied man might have sent his men to capture Frank. Georgina was already at the point of shedding tears when she perceived a pleasant fragrance, so immediately, she knew what she had to do next. She hurried down the stairs after having searched every room upstairs. She just instinctively decided to enter the next room, and once she poked in her head, it was Frank busy with his cooking chores. "How did you know that I am here?" he asked with a smile. "You really stress me, Frank. I was so worried that something might have happened in my absence. But I'm glad that you are not in danger. But as for the cooking, there is no way it will work when I'm here. Your injuries are more severe than mine. Moreover, I'm the lady here." "Who says men can't cook?" Frank asked. "I understand that it is the responsibility of women to cook and to attend to certain domestic chores. But that does not mean that I should not cook. Does it? Besides, you are still nursing your injuries. Just allow me treat you like a baby you are." "I'm not a baby. I'm a big girl." Frank looked at her and they all bursted into laughter. "Okay. You win, Frank. But can I help you with some of the chores?" That will be fine, Frank replied. She smiled. I thought you would say no. I wanted to say no. But then I realized that you will also eat the food. See your big head, Frank. You are cooking and watching movies at the same time. What if you make a mistake? Like adding too much salt? I will just force you to finish everything. My baby is very strong, right? Please stop calling me baby. Georgina said while putting up a baby face and acting exactly like she was a baby. Please now, I'm a big girl now. Frank grabbed a cup of water and sprinkled it on her head. She screamed so loudly because the water was from the freezer. It was very cold. I'm sorry, my baby. I'm so sorry, he apologized to her but still laughing. I will not be a baby again. I'm leaving the kitchen. Then she pretended like she wanted to leave, but Frank grabbed her arms. Frank, leave my hand now. Just leave my hand, let me go. I will make it up to you, he said with a smile. She became so curious and was ready to hear him out. Just come closer, he said. And she reached very close to Frank, and he asked her to give him a listening ear. She gave him a cess to her ear, and the next thing Frank said was, I love you so much, Georgina. You are such a sweet girl. His voice was deep and sexy that it tickled her body. She felt loved and highly emotional. She just stared deeply into his eyes and he got aroused and was in the mood. Their lips were moving slowly and soon, Frank bit her lips gently and she felt this vibration in her body. Frank was a sweet kisser and Georgina really wanted more. Meanwhile, they had forgotten about the food that was on fire. And also, Georgina was not aware that there was a device planted in her belly which makes it easier for her to be tracked and captured even if she escapes out of the country. The food was already burning, but none of them noticed. Soon, Frank's phone rang. He ignored it and focused on Georgina. After a multiple rounds of ringing, Frank now understood that it was an urgent call. He had to pull himself away from Georgina's grip. On getting to his phone, he realized that it was an unknown caller. He just held the phone in his hand and kept staring at it. After several minutes had passed, he just hesitantly swiped the phone on call and a strange voice surfaced. Mr. Frank. We need the girl you are keeping in your house. Return her tomorrow morning and we shall act like nothing happened. But if you refuse to follow this instruction, something terrible shall happen to you. At first, Frank didn't take him seriously. He assumed that it was an empty threat. What if I don't return the girl to you? He asked. That's not an option for you, Mr. Frank. The caller replied. Your mum and dad are here with us. That is to tell you how serious we are. I mean, she is just a nobody. A total stranger that can betray you tomorrow. So, it's up to you. Choose between your precious parents and the stranger in your house. Frank breathed heavily. He began to sweat. Tomorrow morning, Frank. If we don't see her, your parents die. The call ended even before Frank could say a word. Georgina was behind him listening to his conversation with the unknown caller. With tears in her eyes, she said to Frank, I am truly not worth it. We just met this night. I am a stranger totally unknown to you. Please take me back just as they had demanded. Then she looked deep into his eyes and said, You are indeed an angel in human form. But I guess our happy time is coming to an end. She could not hold her tears and she just threw herself on Frank, holding his body so tightly. Her body was trembling. She knew what she would be walking back into. She remembered what happened to her colleagues back there. I am so scared, Frank. Who will save me now? She cried. Who will save me from this people? Frank cuddled her so tightly. His mind was fixated on his parents. They were his all. In difficult times, they had always been there for him. But he still remained puzzled. How did they get to my parents the same night that this incident had taken place? He asked himself. It truly didn't make sense to him. But the fact still remained that his parents were in their custody. Frank was timely in turning off the gas. Had he wasted more time, the whole house would have exploded. Throughout the night, both could not sleep because of the level of anxiety occupying their minds. He didn't want to take Georgina back. He would live to regret his actions for the rest of his life. "Tell me about your life," Frank asked. "Well, my name is Georgina. I am from Nigeria, precisely in Lagos. I am a graduate, the youngest in my set." She was saying all these with a crying voice. "I tried several times to get a job, but it didn't work out. Before then, I had it in my mind that once after school, a lucrative job would be waiting for me. It was my desire because I wanted to take care of my little ones. And that was when Jessica came into the picture. I explained my condition to her, everything. I didn't even hold back. I was so excited when she offered me this job. According to what she said, all I needed to do was to be the secretary in her company. She was also working there and she was quite successful, which made me to believe her without doubt. But look at me now. Where is Jessica? I wanted to tell my parents, but I knew quite well they would not have allowed me to come. It is that part that I would regret so much if anything was to happen to me." At this point, she could not control her tears again. She leaned on Frank's shoulder. Frank took a deep breath to relax his mind. "I think I have a plan. I will report to the police and they can come up with the tactics that would save my parents and also apprehend these guys." He grabbed his phone. He informed the police about his present condition and they assured him that all would be properly taken care of. Police can't handle this case. These men are everywhere. They control South Africa and you can't stop them. Just take me back to them and your parents will be released. Who knows? The God in heaven might still rescue me if it pleases him. My word remains my word. Neither you nor my parents will lose your lives. I trust the police. With the right information, there is nothing they cannot do. We are heading to the station very early in the morning. Do not be afraid. You need to take some rest." Once he said this, he stood from the bed and allowed Georgina to stretch herself. Then he covered her with a beautiful and nice scented blanket. "Good night," he said before giving her a soft sweet kiss on her lips. She tried to sleep, but her mind was already overwhelmed. It was nightmares after nightmares. She had to sit on the bed holding tight to her pillow and her whole body trembling with fear. Frank had reported to the police that night, but this turned out a very big mistake. The same police officers had to contact the pot-belly man and his gangs that same night. "Come to my office tomorrow. Your goods would be waiting for you," the officer said with an evil smile. Which meant that the gang would be there already before Frank and Georgina arrived. "Are you happy now, boss? Good to see that smile on your face again." Frank had a very nice sleep because he believed that the police had got his back. Early in the morning, he made his way to the room where Georgina had slept in the other night, and he met her still sitting on the bed and holding tight to her pillow. Her eyes said it all. She didn't even have a minute of night sleep. Frank sat next to her and began to caress her hair and to encourage her as well. "Please, I don't want you to go to the police. You never can trust them, especially in this kind of situation." But Frank smiled in response. "I have a friend occupying a very important position in the police force. You think I would have done this if I didn't have a plan? This friend is very close to me. He had helped me manage many difficult cases in the past. Watch and see what will happen this morning." Georgina was not impressed even after being reassured that everything was under control. Aside God, no human can be trusted. "I'm not doubting your friend in any way. I don't even know him. However, I want you to think deep and recall what really brought me into this situation. It was the same trust issue, right? Human beings are good. And I understand that we don't have any option but to trust each other. But sometimes, it becomes the most dangerous decision to make. Think about it, Frank." Frank patted her back and he stood from the bed. "I will get you breakfast. And prepare the bathroom for your morning shower. I love you, Georgina." He kissed her cheek and it was so soft. He loved the feelings, so he smiled at her and then he left. Georgina forced herself out of the bed and she grabbed her towel and soap and made her way to the bathroom. It was a very cold morning, so she decided to have a warm shower. She felt better as the water splashed on her head and upon her entire body. It was so blissful to experience. She massaged her body so gently as the pouring water wiped off all foams from the soap on her body along with any other form of unwanted germs. She was smelling so nice. But the moment water touched her wound, she screamed so loudly. For some minutes she paused everything she was doing until the pain had subsided. She gently walked out of the bathroom and went back into her room. Frank heard her scream while in the bathroom, but he chose to respect her privacy since she didn't scream again, neither did she seek for his assistance. Frank waited for a long time sitting at the dining table, but she didn't come outside her room. "I just have to take the breakfast to her." So he said, "Ladies and their problem." So, he opened the door and she was just seated on the bed and lost in her thought. "Breakfast is ready. I guess I need to feed myself." Then he tried to make an attempt, but Georgina wedged his hand. "Please, don't go to the police," she pleaded. "That's our only hope." Frank replied, "Don't forget my parents are also involved. What if I handed you over to them and they still shoot both of us? I have checked every other options, this is the only way, my little baby." "You started calling me baby again. I will not eat again. I am not a baby." She frowned her face, which was a pretense show. She really loved the way Frank treated her. But she just wanted to be a little bit dramatic and to spice things up. "I know my friend will help me solve this problem once and for all. And then you will be free." Frank had so much dependency on his friend. Unknown to him that it was this same friend that helped the gang to capture his parents. He was still the same officer calling the gang the night before, and telling them that they would be able to capture Frank and Georgina once they come to their station in the morning. Fear some friends. They hopped into Frank's Lamborghini and they hit the road. They were cruising on their way to the police headquarters with so much confidence. Both were dressed in black suits and occupying a black shiny Lamborghini. Frank's friend signaled the guards to open the big gate, allowing them to drive in. He hugged Frank and shook hands with the lady. It was love at first sight. His name was Micah. He could sense a deep affection for Georgina. But he had to pretend as though nothing happened. This was a vast area heavily guarded by men and technology. Various armored cars rightly parked and men in various positions armed with sophisticated rifles. Georgina was a little bit relieved seeing all these in place. But when she glanced at a particular direction, she freaked out. She began to panic because she really recognized the face. This man was working for the gang. She had seen him visit the park on countless times.